This friend of Kenneth's used to do favours for him and Louis on a regular basis, and he really looked after them. One of his things that he used to do was to take them for drives in the country on a Sunday. And one day, Kenneth said, "Right, we're not going to our usual place, we're going to St. Ives." And so he said, "St. Ives, why?" He said, "Never mind, just come on, let's go." So they drove off, and they arrived in St. Ives, and Kenneth said, "Hang on, hang on." And they put up outside this house, with just a very ordinary house, with peeling paint on the windows and dirty curtains hanging in the window and a gate hanging off its hinge and a rusty letterbox. And Kenneth just looked at the house and went, "Yes," made a few notes and said, "Right, let's go home." And the friend couldn't figure out what this was all about, and he found out later that apparently a man had written a piece of hate mail to Kenneth in which he said, "You are a disgusting sodomite. You are guilty of the act of sodomy and you will die in hell. God hates sodomites and you must die in hell and pay for your sins." And Kenneth wrote back to him, because this man put his address at the top of the letter, which people don't normally do when they write hate mail.
Some people just can't leave it alone.
Kenneth wrote back to this gentleman and said, "Yes, well, first of all, I'm not a sodomite. I never engaged in such filthy practices. So your mind is obviously as filthy as the curtains hanging in your windows and the gate hanging off its hinges and your peeling paint on the window frames and your rusty letterbox. Please accept my compliments, and I hope you drop dead on receipt of this letter." And he'd gone to all that trouble to find out the details of this man's house just because of one letter. He'd driven right the way across the country to find out.
"You got me going, you did, you rotten swine!"
His opinion of himself could swing so tremendously from day to day. He could look at himself in a bathroom mirror one day and be so enraptured by what he saw that it was practically orgasmic.
First thing in the morning, I look in the mirror and think, oh, that, what a dish, I think,
And then the next day, some little pimple would appear on his chin, and he would think he was the ugliest thing in the world.
What is this wretched old face ever going to accomplish?
And he'd be cast down for the rest of the day, and brutally nasty to everybody else, and so on. This is extraordinary.
Emerson said we've as many personalities as we have friends, and that's obviously true. So a bloke isn't the same with his grandma as he is with his wife. And he's not the same with his wife as he is with mate at work, is he? So there's three personas, isn't there?
The sort of terrifying Jekyll and Hyde that he was. You know, on the one hand, he was this rather charming, urbane character, very funny, very witty. And this other side of him hated himself and hated so many people that you thought he adored. Extraordinary.
He recognized, I think, that he'd painted himself into a corner, both professionally and personally. Professionally because he knew that he had reduced himself to being a figure who was the king of the chat show circuit, but little else. And personally, because he was both wonderful but also impossible.
He set out to behave badly, I think, on many social occasions, which he was quite proud of because he'd never done it as a child, I think. He'd never been a naughty boy.
Many a time and oft we had him in our sitting room, literally dropping his trousers, dropping his underpants, revealing the bum. You look, it's hanging down in pleats, all of that. Very funny, but sometimes it went too far.
Dreadful, isn't it, though?
When they went on holiday to Torremolinos one time, this friend was with them, and they were on this plane full of little old ladies, and they were going through some very severe turbulence, and all these old ladies were genuflecting and getting very upset, and Kenneth started singing "Nearer My God to Thee" very, very loudly, and all these hymns, you know, see, and the stewardess came up to him and said, "Oh, Mr. Williams, please, people are getting very upset. Could you please just keep it quiet?" And he said, "No, we're all going to die, and we've all got to be ready for it. Come on, everybody sing, nearer my God to thee." He loved it. He couldn't wait to die, you know.
Friends, Romans, countrymen. I know. Oh, what's the use?
At the end of his life, he didn't find it funny at all. He was ill, he was fed up, and as he put in his diary in that last entry, oh, what's the bloody point?
When more of the facts came out in the coroner's court hearing and they recorded an open verdict, I think perhaps to save his mother, Lou, any pain, I think we realised that he probably did take his own life, and I guess one can understand that.
I sympathise with people who can't believe to this day that he could have done away with himself, but as early as the 40s, he's calling himself a suicidalist, which I take to be a word meaning somebody to whom these thoughts are occurring on a regular basis.
Yes, I put stuff like down about suicide and how one will go about it, what would be the best method, all that kind of thing, you know. Looking back on it, of course, it's often, you know, quite amusing.
Why do you think you want to kill yourself?
Because of extremely low state of morale. And one actually does write something down which is practical in terms of how one thinks one should go about it.
It's always going on about, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it one of these days. If things get any worse, I will do it. And then they'll all be sorry, won't they? Yes, they'll wish they treated me a bit better, won't they?
The most dreadful thing that ever happened between us, really, was ages later. I saw him in the street, and I was having a party, and I said, "You must come." And he did come. But it was such a riotous, crowded party that we never heard the bell. And he did come, but he didn't get in. And that was terrible. And I don't think he ever forgave me for that.
We are a portion of everything we've ever loved. And I think it is those loves that form the tissue, if you like, of belief and faith. Because acting is all about faith. Performing is making an act of faith, believing that you can create reciprocity between the auditorium and the stage. And that's why when the atheist says, what if life's pointless, what if it's all a joke, has to be answered by the comedian. Well, if it is a joke, let's make it a good one. This woman at the zoo and this Frenchman who's visiting London Zoo is listening, and the child says, what is that hanging from the elephant? She says, it's his trunk. And he said, no, at the other end. It's his tail. And he said, no, not quite the end. And she said, oh, that's nothing. And the Frenchman said, oh, madame, vous êtes très blasée.
When he died, I knew I was going to miss his voice and his extraordinary delivery and his extraordinary intelligence, really. Comic intelligence.
Come on now, stop messing about.
He goes down as a one-off. Some could say thank heaven.
En les soirs qui mal y pense, faites-vous jeu, reconnaissance. Hammersmith, palais des danses, badinage, ma crêpe Suzette, du blanc tendre, restaurante, Jacques Cousteau, Yves Saint-Laurent, où est la plume dématante? C'est la vie, ma crêpe Suzette. Crossage, massage, frère Jacques, salon, par avion, Pétula-Clark. Fiancés ensemble, lorgnette, lingerie, des toilettes, gauloise, cigarette, entourage, ma crêpe Suzette.
Well done, Kenneth. Unique. Yes. Oh, yes, I'm a cult. He'll be saying that now. That's what he'll be saying, echoing into up there in heaven. I wish I could do the voice, because he'll be saying, oh, I'm a cult, I'm a cult. That's what he would want. At the end of your program, as the little dot disappears, he will want his voice saying,
I'm a cult figure, you see. I'm an enormous cult. I am. I'm one of the biggest cults you'll get round here, huh?